15 Worst Drug Addictions in R&B History. What happens when fame and addiction collide? These legendary artists captivated the world with their unmatched talent, but behind the glitz and glamour was a darker reality. From Whitney Houston's heartbreaking downfall to the painful struggles of Marvin Gaye, these stories are more than just tales of fame, they are cautionary warnings. Could their destinies have been different? Was the music industry to blame? Dive into the untold stories of these icons and their battles with addiction. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think they were treated unfairly, or is the price of fame too high? Subscribe now for more shocking revelations. Whitney Elizabeth Houston. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born on August 9, 1963, into music royalty. The daughter of gospel legend Cissy Houston and cousin of Dionne Warwick, she was destined for greatness. Her 1985 self-titled debut album launched her to superstardom, breaking racial barriers on MTV and selling over 25 million copies worldwide. Hits like I Wanna Dance with Somebody, Greatest Love of All, and her iconic rendition of I Will Always Love You cemented her status as one of the most powerful voices in modern music history. But behind the soaring vocals and picture-perfect image was a woman grappling with immense pressure. The demands of fame, a tumultuous marriage to Bobby Brown, and a lifetime of personal insecurities led Whitney down a path of substance dependence. Though she once described herself as too classy for hardcore drugs, by the mid-1990s, cocaine, marijuana, and prescription pills had become intertwined with her daily life. In a candid 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer, she famously declared, "Crack is whack," but her defensive tone revealed deeper struggles. Over the years, she canceled concerts, appeared disoriented in public, and battled serious vocal decline. Multiple stints in rehabilitation facilities were only temporarily effective. Her 2009 appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show was a heartfelt attempt to reclaim her narrative, admitting she had been addicted for years. Tragically, on February 11, 2012, Whitney was found submerged in the bathtub of her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She was pronounced dead at age 48. The coroner's report listed accidental drowning as the cause, with cocaine, heart disease, and other substances contributing. Whitney Houston's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. She shattered glass ceilings, redefined pop and R&B, but ultimately fell victim to the very industry that once celebrated her. Her brilliance remains, even as her life ended too soon. Marvin Penske Jr. Marvin Penske Jr., better known by the stage name Marvin Gaye, was born on April 2, 1939, in Washington, D.C. He was the crown jewel of Motown's golden era, bringing sensuality, spirituality, and social commentary to R&B with an unmatched tenderness. With timeless records like Let's Get It On, Mercy Mercy Me, and the groundbreaking album What's Going On, Gaye shaped the sound of a generation. Yet, beneath the smooth vocals and stage charisma lay a lifetime of internal anguish. Raised by a domineering, abusive father and shaped by religious rigidity, Marvin wrestled with guilt, identity, and depression from an early age. Fame provided escape, but not healing. In the late 1960s and throughout the 70s, he became increasingly dependent on cocaine, a drug that both fueled his creativity and exacerbated his psychological decline. He also dabbled in PCP, which amplified his paranoia and self-destructive tendencies. Following his divorce and financial troubles with the IRS, Marvin moved to Belgium in an attempt to reclaim his life. There, he recorded Midnight Love, featuring the hit Sexual Healing, which marked a temporary artistic revival. But the demons remained. His mood swings worsened, and he became withdrawn, convinced that people were out to get him. He attempted suicide more than once. One attempt involved jumping from a speeding car. In 1983, he returned to the U.S. and moved back into his parents' home in Los Angeles. Tensions with his father escalated dangerously. On April 1, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, Marvin was fatally shot by his father during an argument. His death devastated the music world and left behind a haunting silence. Marvin Gaye was a prophet in rhythm and melody, but one whose truth-telling could never save him from the wounds that never healed. Janis Lyn Joplin. Janis Lyn Joplin was born on January 19, 1943, in Port Arthur, Texas. A white woman who found her soul in black blues and R&B, she defied conventions with a raw, whiskey-soaked voice that seared with emotional honesty. Rising to prominence after her explosive 1967 performance at the Monterey Pop Festival, she brought unfiltered passion to every note. Songs like Piece of My Heart, Cry Baby, and Me and Bobby McGee remain sonic testaments to her untamed spirit. But Janis was never comfortable in her own skin. Mocked in high school, emotionally distant from her conservative upbringing, she found refuge in the music of Bessie Smith and Lead Belly. Her pursuit of belonging drew her to San Francisco's counterculture, where acid rock and southern comfort flowed freely. Heroin, introduced early in her career, quickly became a crutch for the vulnerability she masked with bravado on stage. Despite her image as a freewheeling icon, Janis desperately craved acceptance. Her personal journals revealed a lonely woman behind the rebel facade. Bandmates attempted interventions, especially during the recording of I Got Dem Ol, Cosmic Blues Again Mama, but her addiction was unrelenting. She briefly got clean during the sessions for her final album, Pearl, but soon relapsed. On October 4, 1970, Janis was found dead in her Los Angeles hotel room. The official cause, heroin overdose, likely compounded by alcohol. She was 27 years old. Her death shocked a generation already mourning Jimi Hendrix, who had died just 16 days earlier. Janis Joplin's time was tragically brief, but her impact eternal. She didn't just sing the blues, she lived them, burned through them, and left a flame that continues to light rebellious souls decades later. James Etta Hawkins. James Etta Hawkins, known to the world as Etta James, was born on January 25, 1938, in Los Angeles. Her voice was a storm, brassy, defiant, aching with truth. From the haunting longing of At Last to the fiery urgency of Tell Mama, Etta carved her place as one of the greatest vocalists in R&B, blues, and soul. But her music was only half the story. The other half was a lifetime of addiction, chaos, and defiance that mirrored the pain in her songs. Etta's struggles began early. Raised by foster families, she learned to survive in a world that rarely offered stability. By her 20s, she was immersed in the club scene, and heroin followed fast. What started as recreational use became dependency, leading her to forge prescriptions, pass bad checks, and steal from friends. She was arrested multiple times during the 1960s and 70s, spending time behind bars and in rehab centers, including the Tarzana Psychiatric Hospital. Heroin wasn't her only battle. Methadone, prescribed to help her quit, became another addiction. She lived years in a cycle of relapse and recovery, watching her career ebb and flow with her sobriety. Despite the chaos, she never stopped performing. Her raw vocal power endured, even when her life felt beyond repair. In her 1995 autobiography Rage to Survive, Etta chronicled her harrowing journey with honesty and grit. She eventually found some peace, receiving accolades that once eluded her: a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, 17 Blues Music Awards, and induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Etta James died on January 20, 2012, just 5 days shy of her 74th birthday, from complications of leukemia. Her voice remains one of the most unforgettable in American music, and so does her battle to stay alive long enough to sing her truth. James Marshall Hendrix. James Marshall Hendrix, born November 27, 1942, in Seattle, was more than a guitarist. He was a sonic architect who reshaped the possibilities of rock, blues, and R&B. With his band, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, he delivered a dazzling fusion of distortion, melody, and soul that turned the music world on its head. Tracks like Purple Haze, Voodoo Child, and Little Wing still mesmerize listeners generations later. Yet, behind the feedback and flamboyant stage presence was a man quietly unraveling under the weight of fame and chemical escape. Hendrix's journey into drugs began modestly, marijuana and amphetamines during early touring days. But after the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, his relationship with LSD became more intense. Psychedelics opened creative doors, but they also unlocked instability. His usage escalated to include hashish, barbiturates, and uppers, especially during grueling international tours. While Hendrix never fully identified as a drug addict, his erratic behavior suggested deeper dependence. He became increasingly withdrawn and inconsistent in his performances, often missing shows or struggling to maintain focus. Those close to him noted episodes of deep anxiety, insomnia, and confusion, exacerbated by mixing substances without medical supervision. On September 18, 1970, Hendrix was found unresponsive in a London hotel. The coroner ruled his death as asphyxiation due to barbiturate intoxication, having taken 9 sleeping pills, possibly unaware of their potency. He was just 27. Jimi Hendrix remains a towering figure in music history, a man who communicated emotions no words could contain. But for all his innovation, he couldn't outrun the dissonance inside. His music remains boundless, even as his life ended far too soon, swallowed by the very edge he so often danced on. Robert Beresford Brown. Robert Beresford Brown, born February 5, 1969, in Boston, was a founding member of the pioneering boy band New Edition. With his swaggering stage presence and a voice laced with edge and charm, he helped shape the sound of the 1980s. After going solo, his 1988 album Don't Be Cruel exploded, featuring hits like My Prerogative and Every Little Step. Brown's fusion of hip-hop beats with R&B melodies helped define the New Jack Swing movement. But as fast as his star rose, his personal life began to spiral. Brown's introduction to substances began with marijuana and alcohol in his teens. While he claimed he avoided hard drugs early in his career, that changed in the 1990s after marrying pop icon Whitney Houston. He later admitted that cocaine, heroin, and crack became part of his reality. The combination of stardom, toxic relationships, and unresolved trauma fueled erratic behavior, arrests, and a notorious reputation. In 1993, Brown was allegedly kidnapped by members of the New York-based Preacher Crew over a $25,000 drug debt. Former gang associates claimed that Whitney Houston paid a $400,000 ransom for his release, an incident that, despite its gravity, was never officially reported to law enforcement. Over the years, Brown faced numerous legal issues, including DUIs, probation violations, and domestic disputes. His addiction also severely impacted his career. Public performances were cancelled, his voice deteriorated, and he became tabloid fodder rather than a respected performer. In later years, Brown entered multiple rehabilitation programs and made attempts at sobriety. The tragic death of his daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, in 2015 further deepened his public reckoning. Today, Bobby Brown lives a quieter life, focused on family and advocating for addiction awareness. His story is a complex portrait of talent, self-destruction, and the slow road to redemption. James Ambrose Johnson Jr. James Ambrose Johnson Jr., better known as Rick James, was born on February 1, 1948, in Buffalo, New York. A funk icon with the energy of a rock star, James blended sexuality, rebellion, and funk grooves into anthems that were impossible to ignore. With explosive tracks like Super Freak, Mary Jane, and Give It To Me Baby, he defined the sound of the late 70s and early 80s. But Rick James didn't just live fast, he raced through fame, power, and drug-fueled chaos at full speed. Long before his mainstream success, James had already experimented with heroin and marijuana in his teenage years. Fame only magnified his indulgences. By the 1980s, cocaine became his obsession. At the height of his addiction, he admitted to spending up to $7,000 per week on the drug. His home life devolved into days-long binges and increasingly violent behavior. In 1991, James and his girlfriend were arrested for assaulting and imprisoning a woman for nearly a week during a drug binge, allegedly burning her with a crack pipe. Released on bail, James committed another similar crime in 1992. He was ultimately sentenced to 5 years in prison but served 2 before his release in 1996. The cumulative toll of his substance abuse was immense. In 1998, he suffered a debilitating stroke during a performance. Years of physical wear, drug damage, and legal battles caught up with him. Though he tried to re-enter the spotlight in the early 2000s, the momentum had long since faded. Rick James died of heart failure on August 6, 2004, at age 56. Toxicology reports found 9 different drugs in his system, including methamphetamine and cocaine. His life was outrageous, excessive, and unforgettable, both a celebration and cautionary tale of fame unchained. James Joseph Brown. James Joseph Brown, born May 3, 1933, in Barnwell, South Carolina, was one of the most influential figures in the history of music. Often referred to as the "Godfather of Soul," Brown was a revolutionary force in the development of funk, soul, and rhythm and blues. With electrifying performances, a signature style, and groundbreaking albums like Live at the Apollo and The Payback, he became an icon whose impact on music and dance is immeasurable. Yet, despite his fame, Brown's life was marred by deep struggles, most notably with addiction. Brown's battles with drugs began as early as the 1960s. His introduction to PCP, a hallucinogenic drug that can induce paranoia, was the start of a destructive cycle. By the 1970s, his reliance on drugs, cocaine, PCP, and prescription painkillers, had taken a heavy toll on his personal life and his career. He was often arrested for a variety of offenses, including domestic violence, and his behavior became increasingly erratic. In the 1980s, his issues with addiction spiraled further, leading to multiple arrests for driving under the influence, gun possession, and even bizarre public outbursts. One of his most infamous moments came during a 1988 interview with CNN Sonia Live in LA, where his peculiar behavior led many to believe he was under the influence of drugs. His paranoia and violent outbursts eventually led to his estrangement from many of his family members and colleagues. Though Brown eventually sought treatment for his addiction, he entered rehab for prescription drug dependency in 1998, his legacy was forever shadowed by these struggles. James Brown passed away on December 25, 2006, at the age of 73. He died from heart failure, though his years of drug abuse certainly contributed to his declining health. Despite the tumult of his personal life, his legacy as a musical pioneer remains as enduring as the soulful rhythms he gave to the world. Ray Charles Robinson. Ray Charles Robinson, born on September 23, 1930, in Albany, Georgia, was one of the most innovative musicians of the 20th century. His unique fusion of gospel, blues, jazz, and R&B laid the foundation for soul music. His groundbreaking hits like What Did I Say, Georgia on My Mind, and I Can't Stop Loving You revolutionized popular music, and his ability to express raw emotion through his voice and piano made him a beloved figure worldwide. Yet beneath the genius of his sound, Charles struggled with addiction throughout much of his life. Charles lost his sight at the age of 7, possibly due to glaucoma, but that didn't stop him from becoming a musical prodigy. However, as his career began to take off in the late 1940s and early 1950s, Ray's life was overshadowed by a growing heroin addiction. He was first introduced to the drug while touring with other musicians. Initially, it was a way to cope with the pressures of the road, but it soon became an overwhelming addiction that nearly derailed his career. By 1955, Charles had already been arrested for heroin possession, and the following years saw multiple arrests and struggles with the law. Despite this, his musical output remained consistent. In 1965, after being caught with heroin again, Charles was sentenced to probation and forced to attend rehabilitation. It took several years for him to fully overcome the grip of addiction, but his battle with heroin would continue to haunt him throughout his life. In the 1970s, after a successful recovery, Charles's career experienced a revival, including collaborations with artists like Willie Nelson and the release of his iconic album Modern Sounds in country and western music. His personal battles, however, remained a part of his story. Ray Charles passed away on June 10, 2004, at the age of 73 due to liver disease. Despite the toll addiction took on his body, his musical legacy remains unparalleled. His ability to overcome adversity, both physical and emotional, and create music that transcends time ensures that Ray Charles will forever be remembered as one of the greatest musicians in history. Natalie Maria Cole. Natalie Maria Cole, born on February 6, 1950, in Los Angeles, California, was destined to be a star. As the daughter of legendary jazz singer Nat King Cole, she inherited not just a passion for music but also a powerful, soulful voice. Despite the incredible weight of her father's legacy, Natalie carved her own path in music, blending R&B, jazz, and soul in a way that was uniquely hers. She rose to fame with hits like This Will Be and I've Got Love on My Mind, and in 1975, she became the first African-American artist to win a Grammy Award for Best New Artist. However, behind her musical success, Cole was battling with substance abuse that would nearly derail her career. In the late 1970s, while pursuing her own musical career, Natalie began experimenting with heroin and later became addicted. Her addiction spiraled out of control, and by 1975, she was arrested for heroin possession. Her addiction led to reckless behavior, including an infamous incident in which she nearly lost her son to drowning while she was on a drug binge. By the early 1980s, Cole's drug use worsened, and she found herself in a cycle of rehab stints, relapses, and professional struggles. But her story wasn't one of surrender. In 1983, she made the difficult decision to confront her addiction head-on. Over time, with therapy, rehab, and an unwavering commitment to sobriety, Natalie was able to turn her life around. Her career saw a resurgence in the 1990s, especially with the release of Unforgettable, with Love in 1991, where she digitally sang alongside her late father's recorded voice, a project that won several Grammy Awards. Natalie Cole's legacy as an artist who overcame adversity to create unforgettable music is a testament to her resilience. She passed away on December 31, 2015, from complications related to lung cancer, leaving behind a profound impact on both the music industry and those who saw her as an inspiration. Michael Joseph Jackson. Michael Joseph Jackson, born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana, became the face of pop music, blending groundbreaking performances, infectious music, and unparalleled creativity. As the youngest member of the Jackson 5, Michael quickly became a standout performer, but it was his solo career that transformed him into the global superstar we remember today. Albums like Thriller, Bad, and Dangerous not only dominated the charts but redefined the pop genre, making him a cultural icon with worldwide influence. However, Jackson's personal life was far more complicated than his public persona suggested. Behind the moonwalk and the gloved hand lay a man who was haunted by self-doubt, anxiety, and a growing dependency on prescription drugs. Jackson's issues with pain management began in the 1980s, following multiple injuries and surgeries, particularly during his infamous Victory Tour. What started as the use of painkillers like Demerol soon escalated into a dangerous addiction, with Jackson relying heavily on prescription drugs to cope with stress, physical pain, and sleep disorders. Despite his obvious musical genius, Jackson's addiction to prescription medications, including opioids, benzodiazepines, and propofol, took a tremendous toll on his body and mind. His personal life became chaotic, with multiple rehab attempts and reports of him becoming withdrawn and anxious, unable to deal with the pressure of fame and the demands of his grueling schedule. Tragically, Jackson's addiction led to his untimely death on June 25, 2009, at the age of 50. He died from acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication, with his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Michael Jackson's death left the world in mourning, and his legacy remains a mix of awe, tragedy, and reflection on the dark side of stardom. Despite his struggles, Jackson's influence on music, dance, and pop culture is eternal, proving that even the king of pop could not escape the pressures of fame. Yvette Marie Stevens. Yvette Marie Stevens, better known by her stage name Chaka Khan, was born on March 23, 1953, in Chicago, Illinois. Renowned as the Queen of Funk, Khan became an icon of the 1970s and 1980s, with hits like I'm Every Woman, Ain't Nobody, and Through the Fire. Her powerhouse vocals and groundbreaking fusion of R&B, jazz, rock, and funk set her apart, earning her 10 Grammy Awards and a lasting legacy in music. However, Chaka Khan's rise to fame was not without its personal challenges. Throughout her career, Khan struggled with substance abuse, including heroin and cocaine, which took a heavy toll on her personal life and health. Her addiction became widely known, and at one point, she admitted to using heroin for about a decade. Despite her glamorous image, her battle with addiction was a secret many tried to hide. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Khan entered rehab several times, battling not just substance abuse but also the toll it took on her mental and physical health. In 1996, she faced another crisis as the tragic death of her friend and fellow musician, Prince, triggered a relapse in her use of prescription painkillers. Yet, despite these struggles, Khan managed to overcome her addiction and regain control of her life. In 2016, Khan made a powerful statement about addiction when she went public with her ongoing battle against prescription medication, acknowledging how close she came to following in the footsteps of the late Prince. Her recovery became a part of her narrative, and by 2019, she celebrated 25 years of sobriety. Today, Chaka Khan stands as a symbol of resilience, having overcome the darkest parts of her personal life to continue inspiring the world with her music. Her voice remains iconic, and her story a testament to overcoming adversity in the face of addiction. Curtis Lee Mayfield. Curtis Lee Mayfield, born on June 3, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, was one of the most socially conscious and influential figures in soul music. As the lead singer, songwriter, and guitarist for The Impressions, Mayfield's music was anthemic, tackling themes of racial inequality, poverty, and hope. Songs like People Get Ready, Freddie's Dead, and Pusherman resonated with the struggles of African Americans during the civil rights movement, while his unique, melodic guitar playing redefined soul and funk. Mayfield's career, however, wasn't without its struggles. Despite being celebrated for his uplifting music, Mayfield was deeply entangled in the same struggles he sang about, particularly with substance abuse. The 1970s saw him increasingly surrounded by the drug culture that he often wrote about. Although never openly associated with heavy drug use in the public eye, there were whispers among those close to him about his involvement with drugs. The toll of addiction became evident in Mayfield's life when his health started to decline due to years of heavy smoking and possible drug abuse. In 1990, a tragic accident occurred during a performance in which a lighting rig fell on Mayfield, leaving him paralyzed from the neck down. The accident compounded the emotional and physical pain he had been dealing with. Though he continued to record and tour, his later years were marked by significant health challenges. Despite these hardships, Mayfield's impact on music and culture remained strong. His music continued to inspire artists in R&B, hip-hop, and beyond. Curtis Mayfield passed away on December 26, 1999, at the age of 57, after battling complications from diabetes. While his life was full of triumphs and struggles, his legacy as one of the true architects of soul music endures. His ability to combine social awareness with profound musical innovation is his ultimate gift to the world. Amy Jade Winehouse. Amy Jade Winehouse, born September 14, 1983, in London, was a singer-songwriter whose deep, soulful voice made an indelible mark on music. With her unique blend of jazz, R&B, and soul, Amy captivated listeners worldwide. Her 2006 album Back to Black became a critical and commercial success, earning her multiple Grammy Awards, including Best New Artist. Hits like Rehab and You Know I'm No Good showcased her raw emotional honesty and musical brilliance. However, Amy's rise to fame was overshadowed by personal struggles, particularly her battles with addiction. Her substance abuse began in her teenage years and escalated in the public eye as her career skyrocketed. Winehouse was often photographed in states of distress, and her erratic behavior became a constant media spectacle. Alcohol, heroin, and crack cocaine became a part of her life, and despite numerous attempts at rehabilitation, Amy's addiction continued to spiral. The relentless pressures of fame, coupled with the breakdown of her marriage to Blake Fielder-Civil, exacerbated her struggles. Her music, which had been a catharsis for her pain, became a reflection of her inner turmoil. As her addiction worsened, her performances became inconsistent, and public appearances were often marked by signs of intoxication. Tragically, on July 23, 2011, Amy Winehouse was found dead in her London home from alcohol poisoning. She was 27 years old, joining the infamous 27 Club alongside other rock icons like Kurt Cobain and Jimi Hendrix. Amy's death, while devastating, highlighted the deep issues of addiction in the music industry. Despite her short life, Amy's legacy as a unique, soulful talent lives on through her music, which continues to inspire new generations. Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince Rogers Nelson, born June 7, 1958, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was a musical genius who revolutionized pop, funk, and R&B with his bold, boundary-pushing sound. From his groundbreaking album Purple Rain to his eclectic performances and iconic stage presence, Prince became an international symbol of creativity and individuality. His music was daring, sexual, and innovative, blending rock, soul, funk, and pop in ways no artist had before. He was a true original, one who influenced not only music but fashion, culture, and identity. Yet, behind the mystique and prolific creativity, Prince struggled with his own personal demons, including his battle with addiction. While he was famously private about his personal life, reports surfaced about his use of painkillers, which he struggled to control. It is believed that his painkiller dependency began after a hip surgery, and though he was known for his strict control over his diet and physical health, the painkillers took a toll. Despite his growing reliance on these substances, Prince continued to work tirelessly, producing music and performing even after he became less visible in the mainstream media. His faith and discipline in his health were at odds with his hidden battle with addiction. In April 2016, Prince was found unresponsive in his Paisley Park estate. An autopsy later revealed that he had died from an accidental fentanyl overdose, a potent opioid painkiller. Prince's death shocked the world, leaving behind a legacy of unmatched musical innovation. While his struggles with addiction were not widely known, they were a tragic part of his life. His influence, however, remains far-reaching, and his music continues to be celebrated as one of the most important legacies in modern music. The lives of these incredible artists, Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and others, serve as both inspiration and caution. While their talents reached unimaginable heights, their struggles with addiction remind us of the darker side of fame. What is the cost of being a legend? Can fame and genius truly coexist with personal battles? How do we reconcile their brilliance with the challenges they faced? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe their struggles were inevitable, or could the industry have done more to protect them? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful stories.